One great way of ensuring that you always have a full pantry is to learn how to do canning yourself at home. In this video, we're going to learn how to take pumpkin and turn it into canned pumpkin in a reused jar. Hey everybody, this is Praxis, and in this video we're going to be canning pumpkin in these old reused salsa jars. Before we get going, I want to let you guys know that there are a lot of different perspectives all over the world about what is the appropriate way of doing canning from different times that are used for doing the canning, different temperatures that are used, whether or not it's appropriate to reuse these old jars. There are a lot of different perspectives. The way that I do it works for me. I've never had any kind of a problem with it, but one thing that I do as an insurance policy is that whenever I do can things, I always cook them when they come out of the can later on, just as a final fail-safe in case there was any kind of an issue with the canning, and if the lids haven't popped yet, that is one bit of insurance for me. But other than that, I've never had a problem, and I just want to relay that to you guys just so you know. There are different perspectives on this, and some people would criticize this, some people would say that I'm too cavalier about it, some people would say I'm too uptight about it, lots of different perspectives. But let's just jump right into the process. The first step in canning pumpkin is to take a pumpkin, clean it out, get all the seeds out of it and all the stringy stuff out of there, chop this up into chunks, and then I put all the chunks into this pot here. You can see a couple of the ones that have been cooked already. I put this over the wood stove and just let it cook for a while. There's no specific time for cooking it. I just kept them cooking until I could take a fork and stick it into the pumpkin. It was nice and soft for me to be able to work with. The next step in the process is to take the stuff off the stove, drain out the extra water. When you do put them in, I put a little bit of water in there to start just to get them steaming, but then they start dripping out their own water, and then they kind of create their own moisture environment. But you do want to put a little bit of water in there just to get them going. Once they are done, I drain whatever water is in here and I start them being allowed to cool. I don't want them to cool all the way though, because I want to start putting them into the containers when they are still kind of warm, because I'm going to jump right into the canning phase as well, and you don't want things to cool down just to have to heat them up again. So I've got one of these jars. What I do with these is just regular soap and water, no kind of special cleaning. Some people get really uptight about the seal up here and making sure that you steam it and everything. I've never needed to do anything like that. I just make sure that there's no debris. I just clean it like you would clean anything. I give it a little visual inspection. I find that these lids are reusable at least 2 or 3 times. It kind of depends on the lid. I find that these salsa lids tend to be more reusable than the smaller ones that I get on pasta sauce jars. But each time you have to just kind of look and make sure that the gasket's still in good condition. And again, we're going to be taking this stuff and it's going to get cooked after the fact. So even if we have any kind of an issue, 5 or 10 minutes of a rolling boil, after you take this stuff out of canning, months and months from now, if there is any botulism toxin, that will destroy the botulism toxin in there. So anyway, we got our jar, we got our lid. I'm going to set the lid off to the side. I like to use a funnel here that sets right in like that. And then I'm just going to take one of these pieces of pumpkin, and the grain of the pumpkin runs in this direction. That's where all the ribs are. So we're going to go perpendicular across that and cut out these little chunks. And I'm just going to ride the spoon along the edge there. I don't want to be getting the skin in there. And I'm going to pull out this chunk, and that goes in, and we're just going to push it down in there, and then we'll get another one. There we go. And they are hot, but just try to be careful with your fingers. This area here, we're going to come back for that. We're letting that cool a little bit. Once it cools, it's easier to touch with your fingers. But we're just getting the big chunks here and pushing them all down in there, trying to make it so there's as little air bubbles as possible. Again, just because it wastes space and prevents the heating from being as efficient as possible. There we go. We're starting to get to the top there. Well, I'm going to leave maybe about a centimeter and change at the top of what's called head space in there. That's the air space at the top. Okay, just pushing them in and checking. I can still add some more. So we'll get some more. There we go. going to set this down here to keep this all clean. And that is an okay amount of headspace there. So I'm just going to take my lid, put it on. So we screw the lid on there, and then that goes right into the pot with everything else. I've already got some water in there, and I should mention that if you are going to use these types of jars, it's a good idea to pre-warm them before you put the hot materials in them. I take mine and I just leave them next to or over the wood stove, a little not directly on the wood stove, but just over it so that the glass can warm up. And the danger of not doing that is that if you were to put really, really hot material into a cold glass jar, it can crack the glass. So that is one of the downsides of using these reused ones, is you don't want to shock the glass as much, which just means that you need to, if you're going to be putting warm things in, you want to warm them up a little ahead of time. I've got some warm water in here already, and I'm going to add a little bit more. I've got some in this thermos here. And the amount of water that I put in here is usually just a couple of inches at the bottom. For pumpkin, it's recommended somewhere around 90 minutes for canning, but I'll oftentimes just do it extra just as additional insurance. I don't feel like there's any downside of doing extra heating, especially when I'm doing it on my wood stove and the energy is essentially free anyway. We're going to put the lid down here. This is a All-American pressure cooker. I've had this for a number of years. These are kind of on the pricey side, but they work really well. They're very safe. They're super, super sturdy. This is the kind of thing you hand it down generation to generation. I'll put a link down in the description below to this particular one that I use, but any kind of pressure cooker is going to get you there. It's just these are really big. You can fit a lot in these. They're really easy to use. They're well made, you know, all that kind of stuff. But the idea is you want to get the stuff up to pressure, because the higher the pressure environment where these things are boiling, the higher the boiling point of the water is going to be. And conversely, if you were to put these in a vacuum, you can make the boiling point of water even lower than it normally is. At sea level here on Earth, it's 212 degrees Fahrenheit is the boiling point of water. But if you go up higher in elevation, like up into the mountains, the boiling point of water is actually lower. It's a lower temperature, so the water starts boiling at a lower temperature. And what we're trying to do here, in order to get the contents of this to be 250 degrees, we need to get this up to 15 psi above the ambient pressure where we are right now. So that's the whole idea of a pressure cooker. It's pretty simple. All you're trying to do is get the pressure environment higher so that the boiling point of the water can go up. We're going to hook this around, and the way that you put these lids on is you want it to have the similar gap all the way around. So what I do is I just get right down next to it and I look and I just make sure that the gap on this side is the same as the gap on that side, and I bring these little locks over like that, and I'm going to do the same here and here. This side looks like it's up a little bit, so I'm going to use sometimes just use a piece of silverware to just kind of lever it over. And the point of this is just try to make it so that the lid is on nice and straight. I'm noticing this side is a little narrower than the gap over here, so again, going to bring it up a little bit, put these down, just finger tighten these things down. Like that. And the last thing we need is our weight. The weight for this pressure cooker has 3 different settings. There's 5 extra pounds, 10 extra pounds, and 15 extra pounds. Honestly, some foods don't need the higher pressure, but I always just put it on 15 anyway, because I figure, well, why not overkill it a little bit? So we're going to be putting this on 15 extra pounds, and we are going to cook this for at least 90 minutes. Again, I usually do it longer than that. I'll oftentimes just double it. I'll do it for 3 hours because the wood stove's going anyway. So let's bring it over the wood stove and we'll get that process going. And there we go. You can see some of the jars that I was pre-warming off on the side over here. I have them just on a little grate to have them separated up. I'm not actually going to use those at this point, so I'll just get those out of the way, move those. And this is just going to sit here and get itself up slowly to temperature. One thing with doing this on the wood stove in the back, I always want to make sure these plastic knobs aren't too close to the flue in the back where all the hot gases are going up. I don't want that to ever melt. And the only other thing to do if you have this on a wood stove is that you have to kind of balance the temperature of it, because you don't want to be running the wood stove too hot, because then the contents in here is just going to really, really boil and you're going to lose your water too fast. And you also don't want it to be too cold, because obviously the purpose of this is to get it up to temperature. So what you want to do is you want to wait for it to get up to 250 degrees Fahrenheit on here, which is that extra 15 pounds per square inch. And once it gets there, you want to either kind of cut back the power of your wood stove to kind of keep it at that sort of happy medium, so that you're not overboiling it and not getting it too cold. If it's difficult to do that, you can always take this and kind of move it to different parts of your wood stove. Or of course you can just do this on your range at home. Again, I like doing this here because it's free. We're running the wood stove anyway, and I get free canning out of the process. So that's it. I hope you found this helpful. It doesn't have to be all that difficult to do canning at home, especially, again, like I mentioned, if you're going to be a little cavalier about it and you want to use some of these recycled glass containers, and you don't want to be crazy about cleaning all the lids, like you're some kind of like a surgeon going in for surgery. You can get away with a lot of stuff, especially if on the backside, when I pull these cans out, I mean, who just eats like raw, pumpkin out of a can? I mean, not too many people do that kind of thing. But whatever I tend to can, I always just, when I take it off, like applesauce, for example, that's something that a lot of people would like to eat cold applesauce. But whenever I have something that I've canned, I always just get it up to a boil after I open up from the can. And that is just that kind of insurance to make sure that it doesn't become a situation where something was developing and growing in there. And again, I've never had a problem with it. In fact, in my entire history of canning, I've only had 2 jars that went bad where the little lids on the tops popped up, and both of those were actually kind of the official canning jars. They were both ball canning jars, so it wasn't even a situation where I was using one of these recycled glass jars. But what I would say again is just for that added insurance, whenever you open up something that you've canned, or honestly anything you buy from the store too, because stores can have these kind of issues as well, if you can just get that contents up to a nice rolling boil for like 5 or 10 minutes or so, if it was just on the cusp of developing botulism and it hadn't quite popped yet, you're going to catch it, you're going to destroy all the toxin that's in there. You won't destroy the spores that are in there, but the spores of botulism aren't what harms people. It is the toxins that are the byproduct of the botulism organism doing its thing. If you get it to that rolling boil, it's going to destroy those toxins, and even if the botulism's in there, the botulism itself doesn't hurt you. It's essentially it's the poop of the botulism that is really toxic for people, and that's what you need to make sure that you're destroying by doing that 5 or 10 minute boil. So this is going to sit here for several hours. I'm going to be waiting for that little hiss. Just kind of keep it right at that temperature, watching the temperature gauge. And at the end of this, I'm going to have 5 cans of pumpkin that I didn't have to go to the store and buy. That's it. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe for new videos all the time. And if you'd like to support this channel, you can do so either through Patreon or PayPal.